Hi, and welcome to this brief introduction on how to create an LLC and, more importantly, the differences between an LLC and an S Corp. Which one should you choose? Now, we often get asked this question so much so that we actually decided to create a quick video on it. But let me begin by saying that none of the information or the links found in this video are intended for financial advice. By all means, seek the advice of your accountant, your financial advisor, or even your attorney if making the decision to actually form any form of legal entity. Now, one of the major differences between an LLC and an S Corp, it goes without saying, and by all means, feel free to visit this URL at the top to help give you further insight as to the differences between the two different types of entities. But the biggest reason that you often find that people choose to be an LLC, it comes down to how you get paid. It's that simple. When you're an LLC, all you have to do is write yourself a check. Now, when you are an S Corp, again, you have this whole other world of how you get paid. You can't just write yourself a check. The company actually has to write you a payroll check. And as you might have guessed, that's right, when it comes to payroll, then you have payroll tax obligations. So again, that is the biggest reason and the biggest difference as to why people opt to be an LLC versus an S Corp, because you bypass all the legal obligations that you have in regards to payroll taxes and just simply write yourself a check if you are in fact an LLC. Another question that is commonly asked is, well, how do I deal with the taxes at the end of the year? Well, the good news is that whether you are an S Corp or an LLC, at the end of the day, and when it comes to tax time, all you have to do is actually physically account for any profit or loss through your actual personal income taxes. They are both what is considered pass-through legal entities. Let me just say that again. When it comes to an LLC and an S Corp, in reality, there's no difference at the end of the year when it comes to taxes. The S Corp is going to issue you a K form. They'll take that K form no different than a 1099 and account for it in your personal taxes. If the S Corp actually lost money or made money, at the end of the day, you're still going to account for it and have your obligations through your personal income taxes. When you're an LLC, it goes without saying that you are solely focused on making sure that the income that you made or lost is actually, again, accounted through your personal income taxes. So again, there is no difference whether you're an S Corp or an LLC when it comes to filing your tax returns. Now, I will say this, and we're going to show you actually here that there are actually 9 states that do not require you to pay income taxes. Often we get asked, the third most question that we get asked is, do I have the obligation to create an LLC in the state that I live in? Or do I have the ability to actually create an LLC or an S Corp outside of the state I live in? And it goes without saying that the answer is absolutely yes. You can, in fact, file an LLC and create a business in another state. But as we often said, do your homework. And so what we wanted to do is actually introduce to you 9 states here that actually do not require you to pay income tax if you are in fact considering creating an LLC outside of a state that you do not live in. Now, what you're going to often find is advantages and disadvantages to doing that. In these states, and in particular, we're going to focus on Wyoming in this conversation. Wyoming is an extremely popular state that people choose to actually create corporations or LLCs because, number one, they don't actually have any income tax, so thus you're not going to have any type of responsibilities and you can get the most bang for your buck. And number two advantage of actually working and actually creating a company in Wyoming comes down to privacy. When it comes to privacy in Wyoming, essentially, you do not have to actually tell Wyoming that you are in fact the owner of your business. All you have to do is hire a third-party company to actually file the formation in Wyoming and list themselves as the registrar, and you do not even have to list yourself as the owner. Now, why would you do that? Well, it's very common for people who are in real estate to create trust companies in Wyoming to protect their privacy. So that way, if there's a tenant issue and if the tenant gets pissed off for whatever reason and they're trying to go ahead and hold the owner accountable, if they do their research and go to the state of Wyoming, there's not going to be any record whatsoever that you are in fact the owner of that company. It gives you that added layer of protection in case someone actually wants to go after you. So think about that. Now, I will say this, that as you make a decision on if you decide to actually create an LLC outside of where you live, bear in mind that you also still have the legal obligation to have some form of residency in that state. As I mentioned before, there are third-party companies that you can in fact hire to be your representative in those states. They can act as your registrar, and they can do that, and usually typically companies do that, and they'll charge you $25 to $50 per year to just basically use them and their mailing address as a physical address in that state. Now, if you are opting to go ahead and use a third-party company out there to create your business, we wanted to give you a site that you can refer to. Again, we are not necessarily promoting this site. We recommend that you do your own research. Look at all the various third-party companies and what they charge. But if you are considering creating an LLC, you can use a third-party company such as Busy. Busy was actually formerly known as InkFile. So they are among the top popular companies out there that people use. And if you go to their homepage, you're going to have the option on how to go about just doing that. It's a very simple process and easy for you to do. All you have to do here is actually select what is the type of company that you want to create. Do you want to create an LLC, an S Corp, or a C Corp? They even have nonprofit. Second thing you have to do is actually choose what state you want this company created in. And again, we talked about you can have the ability to create the company in the state that you live in, which is highly recommended. Or if you opt to go ahead and actually create the company in a different state, by all means. Once you do that, they are actually going to show you the fees associated with doing that. And actually Busy comes with 3 different types of packages. Now, we highly recommend choosing one of the 2 higher end packages for obvious reasons. If you scroll on down here and you use any third-party company, they're going to more than not provide you with the fees that in fact are considered the state fees for creating that legal entity. And then they're going to say, okay, that's the state fee, and this is the additional fee we're going to charge you. Now, one of the things you want to make sure that if you choose a third-party company to actually do the corporation or the LLC for you, you want to make sure that they in fact include the EIN creation. Now, bear in mind this is how it works. You first have to have the state approve the corporation or the LLC. And once you get the state approval, then you create the EIN. And as we all know, the EIN is the federal identification number. It is almost in essence like your social security number. Then the IRS gets notified after the state has approved the formation of that entity. So that's how it works. So make sure that you choose a third-party company that's throwing in the EIN. Again, if you are making a decision to be an S Corp versus an LLC, make sure that they include filing that Form 253 that's required by the IRS to physically form that S Corp. And if you are creating an LLC, make sure that they include the operating statement. The operating statement is nothing more than a document in writing that's filed with the state that identifies you as the owner and identifies on a high-level perspective the formation of the company and the fact that you are in fact legally responsible for that entity. Now, I will say this as we talked about Wyoming and Wyoming's infamous privacy. When it comes to the state of Wyoming, you do not have to file an operating statement. But one of the questions that we often get asked is, if we create a company in Wyoming or in any state that we can protect our privacy and not have it on record that we're the owner, how do I even have any proof that I am in fact the owner? Well, that goes back to the operating statement. which is why you want to make sure you have an operating statement, even if you choose not to file it with the state. You want to make sure that at the end of the day, there's some type of legal document that shows that you are in fact the owner of that company. So hopefully this quick tutorial gave you everything you need, at least on a very high level, to understand the differences between an LLC and an S Corp, and at least some additional resources for you to actually make a decision if you are in fact considering to create the company in a different state, as well as use a third-party company. Again, as we began this video, we want to emphasize that none of this information is intended for financial advice. If you are in fact considering creating a company, seek the advice of your financial advisor and your accountant, and we look forward to seeing you into the next video.